Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really excited about this one here on Sportswire Radio tonight because we've had him on in the past. And obviously, of course, he was the quarterback for that legendary 2016 Brooklyn College Bulldogs men's basketball team that won the CUNYAC and went to the NCAA tournament. And the 14-15 team, of course, which was nationally ranked. But he was also doing a phenomenal job on the sidelines this year for our York Cardinals, our men's basketball team, where he was actually the head coach there for quite a bit. We'll get into that. And unfortunately, his teams did a pretty good job against some of the teams we speak about quite a bit here on the show. Obviously, our John Jay College Bloodhounds and also our SJC Long Island Golden Eagles. And of course, the Cardinals had their best season here, ladies and gentlemen, since 2013-14. They win their first game in the CUNYAC since 2014-15. They played Baruch, the CUNY champions, maybe as good as anybody's. They were pretty much everybody I saw them play. They were really good against. They were one of the toughest teams. They had some great players like Karan Dublin and Mambe Carisi, Divine Chisholm, Donald Hartley, Gilmelo Hernandez. This was arguably pound for pound. And I'm not just saying it because he's on here, but because I watched maybe about 90 to 100 games this year throughout our D3 level. And they might have been the best starting five I saw all year. And that counts Yeshiva. That's how good these guys were. And I'm excited to speak with them as always. And without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one Global Sports Show, the associate head coach for our York College men's Cardinals men's basketball team. That's Jamel. Yeah. Coach, welcome back.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. I'm glad to be back on, man. It's been a while. So
I know it's been a while.
Been a season.
It's been quite a season, quite a ride. Yeah. We had you on the first time. There was no video. Now we've got video. We're all over the place. And you're going a lot of places. And obviously, always excited to speak with you. Always one of my most memorable and favorite interviews I've done in the 3+ years. So always good to catch up with you. A lot to talk about. What a season. This was definitely one for the ages here for the Cardinals, the men's basketball team. Obviously, the best pro season the program has had in almost a decade. And congratulations to you and the entire staff. It was definitely a bumpy ride, but it was definitely a successful one. And set the tables for us, especially for those who are watching this for the first time and hearing about the York Cardinals men's basketball team. And how did it all become such a successful season for you guys?
Well, it mainly started in the preseason. You know, it starts with recruiting and getting some guys in and making sure they come together early. And a lot of our guys came together early so that when tip-off came and it was time for us, October 15th, and it was time for us to start being in those practices with those guys, they were already up to pace. So, you know, us having a junior captain and Divine Chisholm who knew what CUNY play was like, for him to come in and get these guys together and basically start them off early, it kind of became easy for myself and Coach Adams and Coach Guerin as well as Coach Tyrone Wilkerson. So honestly, those guys deserve all the credit. We sit there, we give them the tools and stuff, but it's up to them to go out and perform. And you know, we fell short of our goal this year, but you know, we had a solid season. It's a stepping stone in the right direction. So hopefully, you know, moving forward, we could build on this and keep making, you know, York fans proud.
And definitely break the hearts of some of the teams I root for, to say the least. But and all kidding aside, I kind of felt like when I spoke with you a year and a half ago, we didn't know obviously it was going to go on, but we knew that this team was talented. I always, when I speak with different coaches and, you know, they would ask me and they would say, oh, what's your thoughts on York? And I would say, these guys are really good. They just play a certain way. And you guys were fun to watch. And it was almost like this was the year that I almost felt like everything kind of came together where finally you guys were able to get over that hurdle and be one of those elite teams in the CUNY. Obviously with Baruch, which is always there. We'll get to Baruch and certainly Lehman, which had, again, one of the seasons for the ages here, and they were the top team in the regular season. But I kind of felt like in a lot of ways that you guys were there finally. Like this was kind of the year for York. I mean, did you, in a sense, kind of feel the same way going into it after everything that went through? Because I felt, at least, again, you guys, I knew you guys were going to be tough. And we'll get into SJC and John Jay and some of those games in a second. But I kind of felt like going into this season that there was something different about this team, maybe than the team that I saw in 1920. Did you feel the same as well, Coach?
Well, I feel like going into this season, we were confident. We knew we were arguably going to have one of the best players in the league coming into this season with Karan Dublin, who, in in my opinion, is the best player to play at York since Mike Woods in 2014.
Yep.
And for him to come in and build off of guys like Devine and DJ Hartley, and unfortunately we didn't get Mambe Caresse back until the second semester because he only had one semester left for eligibility. You know, once he came in, he was the guy who really took us over the hump, because the first semester we struggled a little bit. You know, we played some tough games. We got hit with COVID. You know, some of our games got postponed, some of them got canceled.
Oh, I'm well aware. A lot of postponements in CUNY. It was very. I needed a score, coach. I needed a scorecard with so many games that were postponed this year. I literally, it was maybe tougher than the year before because we knew, okay, no basketball. It was like from December to January. It was like I really didn't know who was playing.
Definitely, it was tough. And it's like one thing we always preach to our guys in practices is that COVID almost took your season away again. Don't take this game for granted, man. It could be gone at any moment, and especially for our senior guys, this is it. Like, you know, the next time some of you guys possibly play a basketball game, you might have to pay ref fees. You know what I mean? Like,
or playing you.
You know what I mean? Like this is real life. This is what it turns into, and just knowing that only a certain, like, what I believe it was 7% of high school basketball players end up being college basketball players.
Yeah.
It's not a high number. So it's basically just telling these guys, don't take this game for granted, man. Give it everything you got. Show up in practice on time. Show up ready to go. When you go out there on the court, realize the people you're going up against, they bleed just like you. They put on, pants one leg at a time, just like you. So, it's nothing to fear. Like, at the end of the day, we go out there and we play York basketball. And that's, once we received an identity, I think toward that second semester, we received an identity and we started rolling. And I think, at a point we won, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say 8 out of 9 games.
You guys were red hot in the CUNYAC. I mean, you guys, listen,
started rolling
right there. Yep.
And that's a testament of just hard work, just knowing that, they didn't take the game for granted. They realized that this game is going to be going tomorrow and they're going to go out swinging. And that's what they did.
Tell me your thoughts on this, because I'm listening to you speak, and I definitely listen. I saw you guys play John Jay those 2 games, and obviously the way you played Baruch and Lehman. Certainly, you guys were definitely pound for pound right there and could have won this conference regular season and postseason. Do you almost feel like, in a sense, because of the way you guys gelled down the stretch, that it was almost like not too little too late, but almost in a sense? Because if you think about it, maybe you guys have a couple more games earlier on to gel. When we look at where you guys finished in the regular season and then obviously going into the postseason, that could have been the difference of you guys arguably winning this conference. Do you almost feel like, in a sense, maybe it was just too little too late in that sense?
In a way, but not so much, because
okay.
when we got rolling, it was the second semester, and kind of majority of our games in the second semester, majority of our guys played. We got Mambe Caresse back. We got, we had Tavon Price, who was a transfer student.
Yeah, he was a good player for you guys. Maybe he got lost a little bit in the stats, but when I was watching him against Baruch and John Jay, even the CCNY game in the playoffs, I'm like, that's the kind of player you win with. Yeah, you win with those players.
Solid. Now, he's one of the guys I wish we had all season. Where we could have gelled him in quicker. But as far as, we were winning games. Now, we were winning games handedly too. Like, we weren't, it wasn't really many nail biters. Like, we really found an identity. We started pressing. We started, finally really started gelling together, and we were hot. And winning 8 out of 9 to close out the season, we couldn't really ask for better numbers going into the playoffs. So it was, I think, I would say I wish we had those guys for a full year, but it wouldn't be right. Like, it's everybody deals with a struggle. So
yeah, no, listen, I mean, everybody had their struggles, and we had Coach Highland on right before he was actually about to play you guys. Ironically, I'm sure you heard the tape, and he said kind of this. I figured something was up, and he had actually talked about the fact that we covered John Jay. Their guys certainly had all over the place, but I almost think in a lot of ways, you guys were better than the record indicated. You guys were 13-11, but even watching you guys in some of the games you played on the road and the schedule you guys played, I always thought at the end of the day that you guys were a lot better than that 13-11, because of all the different things you just talked about. Did you kind of feel the same way?
Of course, like I said, before we won 8 out of 9, our record was like 4-9 or 3-9. So for us to get rolling, we believed in ourselves. Like there was never a moment we knew what we were. It was just up, to earn the respect around the league, and that was something we always harped to our players, that respect is never given. You got to go out there and earn it, and we try to do our best to go out there and earn respect, and just go out there, play 40 minutes of basketball, and show them the York way.
Oh, definitely. You guys showed the York way, to say the least, and you guys were fun to watch. I will definitely say, and I think I said this with Coach Jamel, and I know I said this with the SJC guys. And you guys, you and Hunter were like my two favorite teams to watch, aside from the teams that I obviously do a lot with here, because you guys, just the way you get up and down the court, you guys have got some scorers, and almost in a lot of ways. And I don't want to compare it to the Brooklyn College teams, but it had to be fun, though, with this team, because in a lot of ways, I felt like, not to compare, but like your identity for who you were in a lot of ways, like with some of these players, Karan certainly, and Mambe when he came back, Tavon Price even, and certainly Divine and Donald, that they were almost like who you were, and maybe Tommy were on the court in a sense, because you guys were fun to watch. And obviously talking about your career last time, but now talking about this team, did you feel like also in a lot of ways that the team maybe took on some of the identity, let's say, from yourself and maybe even Tommy, who we'll get into later on?
I think that's giving us too much credit. I think that's giving myself.
Hey, listen, you were in the NCAA tournament. You scored like 1,100 plus points. I forgot what it was. I mean, you were fun to watch. I mean, or maybe Tommy would give him too much credit, but I watched you play quite a bit on YouTube, so I seen you play.
I think we got lucky. We got, it's one thing. It's one thing to have talented players, and it's another thing to have talented players who are also great individuals.
Okay.
And we had both. We had, like, for example, Karan Dublin. He not only was he a terrific player, he was a better person. He came from a good family. He real mannerable, like just an amazing kid. Same with Divine Chisholm. So like DJ Harley, the same thing. Like we were blessed to have kids who really just came from good backgrounds, who basically just, started to change the mold and the stigma that people affiliated with York College. And that's something, even when I was a player, there was a stigma about York College.
Oh, I'm aware.
and it's like, one of the things myself and Coach Adams, when we first got there, it was changing that stigma and changing what people thought about York College. And it was always in a negative light. And it's something we couldn't stand, because, how dare people look at, these young men who are really here going to school playing basketball and just look down on them in a certain way. So the stigma that was affiliated with York College, we really just wanted to change that. And, it started with guys like Divine Chisholm, who really, we took him in as an 18-year-old, he just graduated high school, an 18-year-old senior, and we made him the face of the program. And, and he's never disappointed us on or off the court. He's been a model citizen, and he's somebody I could, I would never forget him. I'll be talking about Divine Chisholm for years. He's just a kid who really came in. He didn't know the vision we had for him. He didn't know, the reins that was on him. He had no idea. But, now that he's an upperclassman, I feel comfortable saying that he was the right choice. Somebody who came from John Dewey High School, and we said, okay, we're going to change this with just great individuals, great kids, and just having somebody like him. And then he followed up with Donald Hartley. These are 4-year players. Guillermo Hernandez, who, he played 3 years with us, but he was in the school for 4 years. So these are guys who really just changed the mold of, and the stigma that was affiliated with York College. And now people see York in a positive light. And that was our plan originally. And I think we're not where we want to be. It'll never be perfect, but we plan to make it nearly perfect.
I think we're getting there, Coach. And again, these are reasons why I also want everybody to follow the York Cardinals on Instagram, because I got a good feeling about this program. I had a good feeling about it a year and a half ago. Now I have even a better feeling, because I watched them play, beat my teams, and break my heart there quite a bit. So obviously on Instagram, you definitely want to follow the York Cardinals at @YorkCardinals_M basketball. Also, Coach Gist as well, JGist15, because I got a feeling. Listen, Coach Gist, he's always been one of my favorites. For whatever reason, I just love speaking with Coach coach, and his energy again speaks for itself. And I did want to go back to something you said, because I found it so interesting in the fact that you talked about like even how players would look down upon some of the players you have. And one of the reasons I love this level more so than maybe some of the other levels out there. And I had this conversation with somebody in my neighborhood, a listener of ours. And I said, the reason I love this level, and you can definitely appreciate this because obviously you played not too long ago. So it's not like you weren't, 20, 30 years ago, is that it's a student. You have to go out there and perform. You have to go out there and have a job if you have those responsibilities. Then on top of that, you have to find out how do you work your schedule, not only from October 15th to where we are now, but also to keep yourself in shape, in the condition to get to that point. I feel like at this level, for anybody to look down, I don't care if they're playing at 0-26 team. I don't care if they're playing wherever they're playing. You'd have to be an idiot, because I really, coach, at this point, to anybody to think about our D3 athletes and look down upon them, considering what they go through. And maybe I'm biased also because the brute force, who I know you played, you played against him, obviously, when he was at SJC. I mean, he's one of my closest friends out there. To anybody that could even look down upon what the student athlete goes upon at this level, coach, I mean, that blows my mind.
And well, just to piggyback a little bit off of what you just said, if you look at my roster, a lot of my guys aren't from Queens, New York.
Oh, I know. Oh, I saw.
So a lot, we're not a commuter school. I mean, we are a commuter school. Like, a lot of these kids are getting on the train after practice and heading home to do schoolwork and wake up and do it all over again.
And you guys are deep in Queens, by the way. It's not as if like you guys are in Astoria. It's a trek.
It's not easy. It's not easy to get to your college.
Oh, I'm aware.
By train or bus. So
yep.
And that's just a testament of these student athletes. And anybody who looks down upon D3 or even CUNY athletes, you guys are mistaken, because we have people who really do it for the love of the game. They work, they have to go to class, they have to go to practice, get on the train, go home, eat, shower, do homework, study, and then wake up the next day and literally repeat that cycle. And that, you might have a game where our game is, for example, in St. Joe's, Long Island, and Patchogue.
It's a trek.
That's a late bus ride back for those student athletes to really get off a bus and then hop on the train and head home. So you know what I mean? Like, people have no clue. There's no red carpet laid out for us, but these kids really do it for the love of the game, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see, and and hopefully they get rewarded for it. Definitely.
Well, I love what our D3 players do at this level, and I can definitely vouch for that trek from Patchogue to Queens. I mean, certainly
that's a different commute.
It's a different commute, and I think every coach I speak with, or every different player I speak with on Instagram, that's always what they complain about. No comment. I'm sure I'm going to hear from Coach Cordiaso right after this, and he's going to say, "What did you just say?" and somebody else. But obviously, and all kidding aside, no, listen, what you guys do, and all the credit in the world to the program. And speaking, let's get to some of the players here, because I've been chomping at the bit for this pretty much since the first time I saw you guys play this season against St. Joe's at the Danzy Sense. I know you weren't there, but let's talk about some of the players though. And Karan Dublin, I mean, this guy, I've had different players I've covered, obviously, throughout the conference and the Skyline Conference and even Yeshiva, but Karan is something different. You can tell that this guy, he's wired differently. I mean, you played with Exxon, you played with Pops, I get all that, but to me, this guy was special. I would pay money to watch this guy, and he's going to get paid, I'm pretty sure, here in a few months. So, I mean, talk to me, though, because, again, you've been around some great players that were wired differently, but he was special to watch. I would watch him, and he was just one of those guys, and he reminded me, not in the sense the way he played, but when Ryan Terrell had the ball at Yeshiva this year, I would stop what I'm doing on the stream and watch. When Karan had the ball, it was, to me, the same thing here. Talk to me about what it was like with him and coaching him throughout this season.
Well, I knew Karan for a little while now. So, for those who don't know, Thomas Guerin was his head coach at BMCC a couple years back. He's the all-time leading scorer at BMCC. He was a two-time Player of the Year.
Yep.
For the CUNY Conference while he was in JUCO. So, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he was the only 1,000-point scorer to ever be at BMCC, but I'm not 100%. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I'm not 100%. But, for us to get him this season, the way the kid works, the way he works out is what made him, was really, his work ethic has really caught my attention. He woke up at 6 a.m. to get shots up, whether it was in our school or somewhere else. You know what I mean? He was a nonstop worker, and his work ethic trickled down to the other players on our roster. He never, he just always worked nonstop, got in the gym, lift weights, whatever it was. He's just a nonstop worker. He's honestly was just an honor to coach. We were lucky to have a player like him. But and like I said, that's the things everyone sees on camera. Like they see, oh, this kid is scoring 22 points a game. He had nearly a triple double on several games. He passed the ball well. He rebounded. One thing, when the first time I've ever seen him play, I told him he rebounds the ball 10 times better than I thought he does. And he I was really impressed by the way he rebounded the basketball, because I always knew he could score. But rebounding the basketball, passing, I was really impressed by that. But like one thing about him, and I said it earlier, I'll say it again. What impressed me about him the most is what he did off the court. The way he was as a person is what made our program go. He was just an amazing person. He was always willing to learn. He had a ton of questions. He would pick your brain all day. He texts me all day. He still texts me to this day. Like I tell him all the time, like, once you put that York Cardinal jersey on, you're family forever. And he's a kid who forever, he could contact me about anything. So, but like I repeat it again, what made him great was not the scoring and the points, and he was a big part of a lot of our wins, but the way he was as a person off the court is what attracted to me to him the most.
Oh, listen, he was a great player, and I'm gonna say this on the record. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for saying this, but especially that first game against SJC Long Island, when he just kept scoring and scoring, and obviously I'm speaking to the brute force, and Brad was saying, yeah, this guy is good. He's got like 26, 20, then he had 32 points, and then I was speaking with Coach Gordiesso, who was going to come on here Monday night with myself and Brad and recap their season. And he was like, yeah, we knew he was going to be good. Now, the scouting report was Karan Dublin was going to be a big, big player. And I think what Coach said, if I recall correctly, that he was going to be either the CUNYAC Player of the Year or right there. And pretty much like right after that,
Close.
He was right there. I mean, listen, you could definitely make a case for him. I mean, he was like that good of a player. I mean, you said something else interesting, and I want to go back to, because you had a number of different players, and obviously a number of them had really good seasons. For them watching Karan, it's different. I know you play, and I know that they relate to you because you're really, again, you're not too far away removed from this, and Tommy Guerin as well. But I feel like, do you think
Tommy Guerin's old? Tommy Guerin's old.
I'm trying to say no comment. So I'm trying to be diplomatic, because I know he is a couple years older than you. But leave that aside. Do you feel like, in a sense, that your players from top to bottom almost looked at it and said, you know what, Karan's coming to the gym, like he's working, he's in the gym, he's playing, and it almost motivates them, where it says, you know what, yeah, I should be working just as hard, because here's a guy that's got the skills as good as anybody's, right? And he's still putting in the work to further himself and enhance his talent, enhance his abilities. Do you think in that sense that was a really positive influence for the team as a whole, just seeing how he worked?
Of course. So what I would say is that our team always worked. They always worked. But what I would say, the thing Karan brought was attention to detail while he was working. Counting makes, counting misses, and just he demanded perfection out of himself. So now, what I would say is that the team always worked, but I think him bringing that, just attention to detail while he was working out, his, the way he elevated every time he shot the ball, just basically, I made 4 in this spot, I got to make 5 before I leave. It was little things like that he, I was just impressed in seeing. Like, I was like, wow, he's literally one of the hardest workers I've ever seen while I was a player or coach.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I've played with some guys who really, got after it.
Yeah, you played with some good ones. We know that. We definitely know that.
Yeah. So for him, he really, I think more so, it was just more of his attention to detail that I think helped a lot of our guys, to piggyback off of him throughout the season.
Let me throw this out there to you and tell me your thoughts on this, because you'd probably understand this a little more than maybe somebody else that I would speak with. And maybe Brad would understand it because he's a player and now a coach. In a sense, do you feel like Karan was also a coach out there, where on the court where he was like the leader of the team in the sense that like you saw him with the ball, you saw him rebound. I mean, he was a great outside shooter from the corner. He loved the corner shot. He could do different things in terms of how he moved with the ball. And with his experience, do you almost feel like in a sense that maybe he was your floor general in a sense, your leader out there on the court? Is that kind of fair to the way I'm describing him?
I believe that's fair, but I believe we were honored to have two floor generals.
Oh, I'm aware
I
of the other
I
one.
think him and Divine were, and they were just amazing friends off the court too. That's what made
Oh.
it so amazing, because the chemistry those two had wasn't just incredible. It's hard to come by. I haven't been coaching very long, but I've been coaching long enough to know it's hard to come by. To have two of your best guys on the team, two all conference players, to basically just gel on the court, and they hang out all the time off the court. So I just think we were honored to have two floor generals. I think both of those guys, they knew what to do when one of them had to sit out in foul trouble and another one had to pick up the load. Those two guys, they really bonded together, and they haven't known each other very long. It's just like as soon as they met each other, they clicked, and they hit it off.
Oh, they definitely did. And obviously, again, these were two of the best players in the CUNYAC conference. And going over to Divine, and I remember watching you guys when you were at the Doghouse. This is at the end of the regular season in 2020. And I remember watching Divine because if I recall correctly, you guys were right there in that game. And you played John Jay really well. And John Jay at the time, I mean, they were rolling. I mean, they were obviously the team in the conference. And I remember watching Divine. I'm like, this guy's good. I was like, and I knew of him, but then watching him in person, I think that's what kind of makes your team always like a little special to me is that you're actually one of the last teams I got to watch in person of like all sports back in 2020. So that's a sense of an honor in itself. But I knew he was a special player, and we've talked about him with you in the past. But watching him this season, especially with Karan, and I know the numbers were similar. Maybe he was a point or two better, but I really felt like Divine's presence on the court this year, maybe more so in 1920, exceeded what he brought in terms of those stats. Is that kind of fair for me to describe Divine in that sense this way for this year?
Very fair, very fair. He is very solid. He's very steady. He doesn't get rattled. He's just a real steady point guard. You know what I mean? He's our floor general. He brings the ball up. He's loud. He takes, he can take criticism because I dish it out to him, and I dish it out to him because I know he can handle it. But he really is just a joy to coach. I've known him for 4 years. I've coached him for 3 because we had to miss out a season due to COVID. But
Sure.
Every year I've watched him get better and better, and that is a testament to him and the individual he is, to just never settle for being, mediocre. He wants to continue to thrive. He's been a rookie of the year his freshman year, and now he's a 2-time second team all conference player. So he just keeps raising the bar for himself. So he's a kid who, even if whether you know Divine or not, and you watch him play or you know him personally, he's a kid you just want to root for.
Yeah, I liked him. He had energy. I think that's what struck me most about him in person, leave aside watching on the stream, is that he had energy. He was one of those guys that I almost, how can I put it? You'd love him if you're on this team. If you're rooting against this team, you hate. That's one of those guys that you hate. But great player. I mean, you could tell. I mean, and this year, and watching you guys, especially in a number of the games that I was able to catch. I mean, again, if Karan was 1, Divine was 2nd, and that's what I think made him stand out. And of course, the other player who was back that we spoke about was Donald Hartley Jr. Again, another player. What's funny to me, Coach, about Donald, if we spoke about almost every other team in the CUNY this year, with the exception of Lehman, Donald's probably the second best player, or even the first best player on some of these teams I covered. But yet on this team, he's like your 3rd or 4th best player. I mean, you guys, like I said at the opening, I think you guys did have the best starting rotation I think I saw this year, and Donald was a big part of that.
Well, we definitely never want to, give our players, you're the first best, you're the second best, you're the third best. That's not something we're about. But one thing I will say about Donald Hartley Jr., who, also known as DJ.
Sure.
He is a killer. And that's just the best way I could put it. The kid, he he'll miss 10. He thinks he's making 11. He has the heart of. He just has a big heart. He's not scared of anyone. He's not scared of any gym he walks in. He believes in himself more than anyone, and that is a joy to have. He has a mentality in himself that, hey, I don't care who's in front of me. I can score. You're not stopping me. And he has a ton of moves. He's hard to guard. He's he's arguably the quickest player in the league in CUNY. So, but like I said, with him, he full out believes in himself no matter what, and he's a guy I will go to war with any day of the week.
Yeah, he's what I remembered most about him was tenacity. Just a guy that, again, he's just a tough player, tough player. And again, you think about what he brought to this team. Again, you guys almost, in a sense, and I do want to recognize some of the other guys off the bench, because you did have some other players that played an important role in this team. And kind of talking about this season and recapping it here, I almost felt like you guys, in a way, had like a three-headed monster. There were teams this year I watched, for example, with Hunter, and Hunter had everybody scored 10 points, right? And there were other teams like John Jay, where John Jay tried to figure out. Their problem this year was trying to figure out who was the guy that was the main focus. Rivera became that, but they struggled with that. Baruch had a couple of players, obviously. Lehman had a couple of players. And the rest of the conference, CCNY had Yassine Saki, and obviously Brooklyn College, your old program, we'll get to them in a second, had Noah Shai. But with you guys, I almost think you were really the only team I could really say had a three-headed monster, where you guys had that trio. Is that something that's fair to say, the way I assessed the conference and kind of assessed maybe a strength of this team? That you had three guys at any given moment that I could say, you know what? They can score for me. They can win it for me. I look at the other teams again. Even Baruch, I don't know if I could say pound for pound. Maybe Bargnani, but you had three. You had three guys that I could say, no matter what, I'm confident with them that they can put the ball in the basket in a big spot. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I somewhat agree. We had three guys who could definitely put the ball in the hole, and I think one person who kind of gets lost in the shuffle as far as to the viewer's eye is Mambe Karesi. He averaged a double. He had a double in nearly every game he came back in. So he was probably averaging about 16 and 10. When he came back in the second semester. So he was having three guards was a joy. It definitely beats getting pressed to have those three guards, especially with the way Hunter plays, where we know we're going to get pressed for 40 minutes. So to have those guards, to handle the ball and run the show and be strong with the basketball, it's huge. But also Mambe Karesi, then him just being himself, because I believe he was the missing piece that we got in the second semester, because he had tenacity. He was somebody who said something and everybody listened.
He reminded
that guy.
He reminded me of, and I hope he takes this as a compliment, he reminded me almost of like an Andre Drummond, where it was just like, man, that guy was just like all over the place. Like, I'm not talking about Drummond right now, although he was good against the Bucks, but the fact of the matter is those years with the Pistons, where he was just like, this guy, like, I don't know how you guard against him. He's one of the, like, just nothing you could do. This guy could get 20 and 20 if he felt like. That's when I watched Mambe. I kind of felt like he reminded me almost of like early Andre Drummond.
And one thing about him is the reason why I loved coaching him. I hopefully he doesn't see this. The reason why I love coaching him is because he is someone who I probably criticize the most. I would be on him the most, and a lot of players can't take that. He could take it. He loved every minute of it, actually. Like he enjoyed every minute of it, of me just on him nonstop, just literally on him, and he loved every second of it. And he was a joy to really just coach, just because he was a guy who he needed that that fire lit under him, and once he got that, he was rolling. He needed somebody literally just in his ear nonstop, and like I said, he was the missing piece for us that second semester, and him coming back on board, because we had him the previous season, but for him to come back on board and literally just lead the group we had, and like I said earlier, whenever he said something, everybody listened. So he having a player like that was just a joy to have.
Well, looking at Mambe, if Mambe says something, I'm sitting right down and just doing whatever he says. I don't care if he tells me I have to jump over the Brooklyn Bridge, considering it's Mambe and his size. Coach, at this point, I'm
Yeah, he was
probably
special.
doing it. I'm
He was
probably doing
special,
it. Yeah,
and like I said, he's another one off the court. He a joy to be around. Like he's a fun guy to be around off the court. Like, and that's one thing. Like I know I keep going back to off the court, but these guys we had, they were very talented on the court, but literally a pleasure to be around off the court. And that's the reason why our season, you know, I'm not gonna say it was a huge success because we didn't get to our ultimate goal, but it put us in the right direction.
Oh, we'll get into that in some of those thoughts in a little while as well. But you know what? At this level, Coach, I'm not surprised that you would talk about off the court because my experiences with all these different players, to me, is that I again, am in such awe of all of them, and not so much because of the talent. And I said this a little while ago, was because of the time and effort that they put in to be student athletes. This is not like, hey, they're in Duke and they can go party and they can play 20 games and then they can declare for the NBA draft. No, you got to go and get, keep your 3-point plus GPA. You might have to go and get a job. You might have girlfriend responsibilities. You might have family responsibilities. Then
you might have a child.
Exactly. I mean, listen, there's hundreds of responsibilities at this level. So it's not like, like you watch a movie and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I played 25 games and then I get the $1 million contract. I mean, look, it's very far few in between. So I'm always in awe at this level of all the different athletes and the sacrifices that they put in. So I haven't met one athlete at this level that I said, well, they really weren't a class off the court because look at what they do. So at the end of the day, to me, those are reasons why everybody needs to follow the York Cardinals again on Instagram at @YorkCardinals_and basketball. And speaking of one of those players that also got an award that I guess sort of would classify as the class and sportsmanship award, and we kind of touched upon him briefly, an important part to the COG as well, Guillermo Hernandez. And talk to me about Guillermo Hernandez and what made him so special and also why he received part of that as one of the members of the CUNYAC All Sportsmanship team.
So Guillermo, better known as G, we call him Big G. He deserved that award without question. We've had him. He was on our roster for 3 seasons. When we first got him, it was somewhat of a language barrier. He really didn't speak much English and things like that. But as far as one thing about G, he will always be the loudest person on the court. Whether he's yelling and screaming, he's going to be the loudest person on the court, and he's going to make sure he's heard. Now, if you're going off of his play, if you go off his play 3 years ago to now, he vamped himself up. Like, when people think of sportsmanship, they think of, being the nice guy, picking the other team up and things like that, which he definitely did. But, he was one of our most improved players as well. He turned his entire game around. I believe he had a game where he had 16 points, 22 rebounds. Like, there were points where he was racking up double doubles, and our coaches would be like, "Wow, where'd this kid come from?" And he really that's just a testament of him working on his game. So he's been an honor and a joy to coach as well, and we're sad to see him go. It's a lot of them we're sad to see go, but they're moving on to a different part in life, and we're going to be with them during those steps of the way as well.
I almost have to ask you this question because it comes up with some of the other schools, and I know I spoke about it with Ryan, and I speak about it off the air with certainly the SJC guys, and I'll get Coach Cordiesso's perspective Monday with Brad. And you have some seniors, and I'm sure you're aware of the waiver rule. They theoretically could come back, and certain players are going to elect to come back because of COVID and the eligibility. With some of these seniors, whether it's Karan or Mambe or Guillermo, anybody else that you might have on the team. And I know it's a delicate thing because we just talked about the balance of being a student athlete, but do you feel like because of the success that you guys had and that you guys, if some of these guys decide, you know what, I'm going to elect the waiver, I'm going to come back, you guys could probably win the regular season in the conference next year. I'm not just saying it because you're here, because of who's on this team. It's not like, hey, I have to drum up and give you guys like last time, some motivation. It's you guys are right there. Is it almost in a sense maybe like, do you talk to them if they want to come back? I mean, how do you juggle that act with the waiver? Talk to me about your thoughts on it.
So as much as we would love to have every one of those guys back, we don't have that problem because all of those guys exhausted all their eligibility.
Okay.
So, that it's an easy answer because I know, none of those guys are returning and,
Okay.
They've used up their eligibility. But if there was a way I can get those guys back, I would gladly take that option. But I do know that those guys have, they've had enough semesters and they've used their eligibility as far as basketball.
So in that case, obviously we wish them well. We're certainly going to miss them. But
Definitely.
I did at least want to ask your perspective on it because I do find it, again, because of what happened last year with COVID, what certain coaches think about it, because there are certain coaches that feel, well, they have to go out and make money. There are other coaches that, well, you know what, our team is really, really good. Why don't you just come back? Because we're right on the cusp. So every coach has it different. And I also wanted to acknowledge some of the other players you have on the team because you guys were really, really deep this year. I mean, I know at this level, in order to win, you have to play deep. I mean, I think you have to play 10, 11 guys. But for those who are watching this, I mean, talk to me about some of these other players that you had that when I watched were really, really important players when they came in there. And they were reasons also why you guys had the season that I think you did in terms of especially that second half.
So, like I said, moving forward, we have Jamel Grant, who will be returning. He has, a couple more seasons left. Mert Zor, who was just a freshman, he'll be returning. He has some seasons left. So, like us moving on, we have a kid, Austin Cook, who has another season left. Like we're doing this thing. We're trying to do this thing the right way. Just build up these guys, and obviously the ultimate goal is for these guys to graduate and move on in the real world, but just building them up and so they can, get on the court and see minutes and basically learn from the guys that we just lost. Because now it's next man up mentality. And that's the goal. Even, we brought in another kid midway through the season. His name is Matthew Smiley.
Yes, I'm sure.
He played some big minutes for us, and us having him for another season is huge for us. He literally same thing with the rest of the guys on and off the court. Incredible. He's a kid you root for as well. And for us to have him another season and him to learn in that one semester he had with us. And now when we see him next season, there's no more room for mistakes. Your room for mistakes are now over. Now it's time for you to let's get the ball rolling. But I'm excited for what we got coming back next season. And we will add some more pieces moving forward and during the offseason get some recruiting done. But we are excited. And like I said, we fell short of our goal this season, and hopefully we get closer, if not achieve our goal next season. So
I got a good feeling. I just got a good feeling because your energy that the team has exudes itself. And I got a good feeling about that. And again, these are reasons why I cannot say it enough. Please follow the York Cardinals men's basketball program on Instagram at York Cardinals and Basketball. Please follow Coach Gist. He does a phenomenal job on Instagram as well at JGist15. I'm telling you, something about him. He's going place. I don't know where he's going, but I just know that in 5-10 years from now, when he's a head coach somewhere, I definitely want to continue to open the line of communication for him. But you said something on recruiting, and I'm going to ask Gordieso this question on Monday. And I sort of asked, we had on the Five Towns College women's basketball coach, Anthony Alfaro. I asked him the question that I'm going to ask you. And I sort of touched upon it with Ryan in the past after they won, but especially now that you guys had a pretty successful season. Let's take a step back. I know we didn't win the CUNY, but we still had a 13-11 season, 10-4 in CUNY, winning 8 of our last 9 up until the Baruch game. I would have to think, because we do have some players like Divine who's coming back, Donald's coming back, that for recruiting, it's an easier sell now with York. I would have to think, because players will ask, well, okay, well, what did you do this past season? Everybody goes on Google. At the end of the day, you're going to Google and see this team. And you guys had some quality wins. You were right there in the CUNY Act. I mean, you win a game. I mean, there's a lot of things to build upon. Karan's going to be a professional basketball player. I have to think that's also a huge boost for the program. Do you feel like now that we're going to go into recruiting phase here in the off season, these next several months, that now it's going to be maybe an easier sell with York? Because when you talked about the stigma of York, now it's over, because you guys just had one of the best seasons the program has had in a long time. And now we've got some players that are here that now can sell. You know what? York's a great place. Come to York. Tommy Guerin was a great player. He's here. Coach Adams speaks for itself. You, obviously. Coach Wilkerson. I mean, do you feel like now going into recruiting, it's almost like an easier lift to get players to come here?
So when it comes to recruiting, I think every coach has their own opinion about it.
Okay.
As I've been doing this for a little while, I've come to realize that when it comes to recruiting, all coaches are doing are selling themselves. I'm really, myself, Coach Adams, Coach Guerin, we're selling ourselves. Like we're really, like I'm not selling it's really, do you trust me to guide you these next 4 seasons or 3 seasons or however many seasons you got, because it doesn't really base on a record. I feel like, because to be honest, we just got Karan Dublin to come here, and our record really wasn't the best.
True.
As far as he was, when he was looking for a school to attend. So, like I said, it comes down to selling yourself, and we like, myself, Coach Adams, Coach Guerin, Coach Wilkerson, we like to look at ourselves as stand-up guys, as good individuals, and to lead. There are points where we speak to these kids' parents. We don't want to lie to these kids' parents. Like we got to speak to mom and dad, and they're trusting us to take care of you for these next 4 years. So, for them to put, for the kids to put their trust in us, and for their parents to put their trust in us, that's huge in itself. So, I don't get caught in, oh, our record is bad, so we can't get this guy. Oh no, I'm coming for you. Whether our record's bad, good, I believe we are a good enough coaching staff to receive whoever we want, if as long as we put the work in to get that person.
No, I think that's totally fair, because again, some coaches we spoke with Coach Alfaro. He said, yeah, it's going to definitely help because now I have a championship. I'm in the USCAs, whereas before I didn't have a program's history. But you make a fair point in the fact that you guys got Quran, and listen, you guys, respect, in 1920 wasn't the season we had this year. I mean, so at the end of the day, I mean, look, you guys can certainly sell the program, and I think there's a lot of great things here for the program. And we are talking all things related here to your Cardinals, the men's basketball team, with our associate head coach here. That is Jamel Gist, of course, the legendary Brooklyn College Bulldog. And we'll get to some of the things about Coach Gist being actually the head coach for a little while. So we'll get into some of that here as well. Of course, the Bulldogs here, he won with 2016, the CUNYAC, and the York Cardinals this year had their best season since 2013-14, win their first game in the CUNYAC tournament since 2014-15. A lot to be proud of here at York. Coach Gist has obviously been a huge part of that. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. If you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/play. I format the music even. I program the show. So if you like talk, if you like music, if you like everything in between, please do give us also a follow anytime and listen at sportnarium.com/play. You can also catch us now on the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. That's on Roku. I want to thank Linda and Mac McGrath. So you'll see our interview with Coach Gist tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock on Roku on the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. You can also catch us now Saturday afternoons on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I want to thank Desmond Johnson for the opportunity for that. You can catch us anytime at tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. I think we're WGBB like 1460 in North Carolina. So at this point, the main thing is catch us anytime on tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. And we are speaking all things related here to the world of the York Cardinals men's basketball program with, of course, the legendary Jamel Gist, who is the associate head coach. But coach also saw you on the sidelines there for quite a bit this season. I was even watching the games against Baruch, and you were certainly there, and obviously an interesting season. I almost have to ask you, because I know a lot of people are going to want to know, what was it like, and how did it all turn to be where you were the head coach there for a huge part of the season?
It was scary. It was different. It was different. It was very different. I think that's the best term to use. It was very different. Now, we're in a tough year as far as COVID and things like that. So Coach Adams, he had to take a leave of absence, and I think my job was more so easy because realistically, I've learned from him for so many years. So literally just piggyback and continue to preach what he preached, and the guys bought in and decided to do it for him. And one thing I wrote on the board before every game was Coach Adams. And and I always said, until my brother is back, we still got work to do no matter what. And those guys bought into it, and every game was for Coach Adams. Those guys laid it on the line, and they would text him every day, Coach, we got your back, this, that. They really put it on the line for Coach Adams, and just to show how much love they had for him. And like I said, my job was more so easy. It was scary sitting up on the sideline, but my job was pretty much easy because I've learned from him for so many years. And what a lot of people don't know is that I know we spoke the last time I was on your show that I played for him my freshman year at NYU Poly.
Yep.
And his assistant at NYU Poly was Tommy Guerin. So I played for him and Tommy Guerin at NYU Poly. So, I've learned under those guys for so long that I'm literally now I'm in my own position to, continue what he started and just try to, elevate it a little bit. And like I said, those guys, they kept their word, and they continue to just play for Coach. Now the weirdest part, and from my perspective, was the Ryan Highland, the John Alisi, the Showman, and
Allen and Hunter. Yep.
Those guys were all there when I was a player.
I know.
So I played against those guys as a player. So now fast forward, I'm on the opposite side of the sideline against these guys, and I'm like, wow, I remember, like it's mind-boggling just to even think about that. And now I see the work that goes into doing this job, and the respect level I have for those guys is incredible, because for them to sustain a job like that for so long and basically keep sanity is great, because I'm ready to lose my mind after every play. And that's a learning phase. That's something I need to learn is moving forward, and it's definitely a task I'm willing to take on. But it was scary. It was different, but I'm happy I had the opportunity to do it and basically just put on a good show and make my brother Coach Adams proud.
No, you definitely did that, and it's funny, and I almost have to sort of rag on Coach Allen. When Coach Allen entered the CUNY, he was like the young man, and now it's almost like he's the old man now. I mean, you kind of, not that he's old, but
I remember.
He was like a baby. He was literally looked like he could have been like from junior high school, and now he's like the old man.
He coached against me.
I know.
Coached against me for 2 years.
I know that.
I've got to see him 2 years. So he was young.
Yeah, he's not so young, and he's got a baby. And it was funny after we did the interview, and it was like, okay, Coach, you gotta go. He's got the baby in the hand. It was like, we just got it in. So obviously, but when you think about Alessi and Pellin, I mean, those guys have certainly been there a while. I almost have to ask, I'm not going to ask you about those peers, but maybe in the sense with Coach Adams, and I know you know him, your family knows him a long time. We'll get into obviously your brother at SJC Brooklyn in a few minutes and talk about that. But what do you think maybe you took away from him all these years to maybe at least help you in terms of that process to make it, if it was any way at all, a little less scary? Because I mean, Nolan's resume speaks for itself, and Nolan's another guy. And again, I sort of, as I always say, have a personal connection to Nolan because a very good friend of mine who knows Nolan is Barry Kevorkian, and Barry knows Nolan since he's like a baby. So I know the kind of man that Nolan is. So I'm probably embarrassing Nolan to hear this just now, but the fact of the matter is, what do you think maybe you took away from Nolan all those years to at least make it as seamless a transition as possible?
Well, like I said, Coach Adams he's family. Like that's my family. Like his son calls me uncle. Like I've known Coach since I was like 12.
Okay.
And his first ever recruit was my older brother. So, my family knows his family. Like we've been down for a while. And, one of the things he told me when he had to, take care of his business was, he told me I was the man for the job. He said, "Hey, Coach, he told me he had no doubts about me taking care of business. He said, he'll know I'll do right." And from that point on, the prepping I've done and things like that, it was really just to, prove him right and make him proud. It was just, I didn't want to take over a team and, let him down. In his eyes, I'm sure he'll say I'll never let him down. But, as a competitor, you never want, you want to definitely, get his approval and basically, and don't get me wrong, we spoke all the time. It's not like, he left me in the wolves, and we spoke all the time.
I'm
We
sure.
spoke all the time. I needed advice. I was, granted, I was his assistant for 5 years, but this is a different ball game. So just for him to reach out and give me pointers, and like I said, I get credit for a lot of those wins, but man, he's that's all him. I just piggyback off what he done, and basically just trying to continue and level up, and basically have our guys perform at a high level and just bring energy every night. Because I believe the game is always won in the locker room. The game is usually always won in the locker room. So the way our guys come out and warm up, it tells me a lot about the team I got that night.
Well, listen, I've seen you warm up and watching some of these games, and you guys definitely did something good warming up. And I almost have to ask, do you also feel like, in a sense, that the players maybe they had a little bit more motivation to play for Coach Adams, in the sense that, hey, you know what, it's a rallying cry. Not to say that you guys weren't a talented team, but sometimes in sports, like you talked about the locker room, it goes a little bit more further along the way, and knowing that, okay, coach isn't here, you might be the head coach, but we want to still play for coach. Was that a motivation at all for the players in the locker room?
Of course, like I said earlier, the first thing I put on the board was Coach Adams' name. It was, one of the 2, 3, and we always say together. Our one member of our family isn't there, so we're not fully together right now. So we're gonna go out here and we're gonna show out. So those guys really embraced that, and they took it on, and they basically said, Coach, this is for Coach Adams every game. And even in our huddles, on my clipboard, the back of my clipboard said Coach Adams. It was literally, and I me being the acting head coach at the time, and basically just preaching, about Coach Adams. Little do they know, me coaching was for Coach Adams. Like every game I was on the sideline, I really looked at it as, hey, this is for him. So it's not, they were out there playing for him, and I'm out there coaching for him. So, you put those two things together, I think we were a dangerous team. So,
you guys were definitely a dangerous team, and I want to get into some of the reasons you guys were a dangerous team, and arguably you guys were the hottest team in the CUNYAC to end the regular season. And here's why. Baruch, the 2 games you played him in the regular season, only lose by 4 points. In the CUNYAC in the playoff, you guys got off to a great start. We're right there neck and neck for much of the first half. Lehman lose narrowly and then beat him by 10. John Jay swept him. I mean, John Jay won the CUNYAC in the regular season. You guys took care of business against them. I mean, that's why you were dangerous. Leave aside, obviously, opening win against SJC Long Island, but the teams that you needed to beat, you guys took care of business. I mean, there's no question. Listen, when we had Coach Allen on right before you guys were about to play them, and I got to be honest, I was more worried about you guys than Baruch and Coach Alicia. And Baruch won the CUNYAC because you guys, just like you said, you guys were really dangerous. I mean, talk to me about just some of the keys and how well you played against these teams. Again, certainly Baruch and Lehman. Let's start with that. I mean, you guys really played them as good as anybody I could think of all year.
Yeah, well, like with Lehman, we had a nail biter coming down in the second half. We rallied. I think we were down maybe 18-20 in the first half. We rallied back, and we made it a game. We actually ended up taking a lead at a point by 3 at some point in the second half. But they ended up pulling it out. That was like the first game, I believe, of the second semester we had. And Baruch is always going to be tough. They're well coached. They defend the ball well. We always know every time we play them, it's going to be a match. And with John Jay, I believe that's the first time we've swept John Jay since I've been at.
I couldn't think of it. I was thinking about it. It's been a while.
That's a testament of Coach Highland and the job he does over there. He does a tremendous job. But as far as the playoffs go, the Baruch team we lost to, people need to realize that at least 5 or 6 of those guys played in the championship 2 years ago. They were well experienced.
Absolutely.
I had one guy, they were well experienced. That was a good team. You need that experience when you go into a powerhouse like that. And for us, we had maybe 2 guys that have seen the CUNYAC playoffs on our roster. So, experience played a part. It was a great learning experience for our roster, for our team, and hopefully, they take that, they embrace it, and they build off of it. And that's the motto moving forward for next season.
Baruch, I've always felt is just a tough environment to play in. It's always been a tough environment because they always draw a crowd. It's a gym in itself. Coach Alisi, who you mentioned, I mean, I think it's what, 5 trips to the CUNYAC in 7 years. I think he's won 3 CUNYACs now. I mean, you think about that program, they're always well coached. They have a certain style of play, and you look at those different players, and I still think at the end of the day, you guys did really a phenomenal job going in there and being able to do those things that you guys did. And certainly, again, Lehman speaks for itself in the year that they had. But I almost have to ask you about Hunter because I just find them so fascinating because you guys were pretty much the only team I could say that could probably go up and down with them and score 180 or whatever it was at this point. And I know I spoke with Coach Highland about them, and I could tell with Coach Highland, he didn't want any part of him because I talked about it. We saw what happened with them, but also even speaking with some of the St. Joe's guys. And in fact, I felt like after we played them, SJC Long, Coach McSloy, and I don't want to tip my hand on what they did, but they certainly adjusted in how they played defense. So I almost have to ask you, because again, you've been a player, you've played against some great players, you've been in the NCAA tournament. I mean, this Hunter team, and I watched them again in John Jay and the CUNYAC. I watched them against SJC. I watched some clips against you guys. Have you seen anything like this before?
Have I seen it before? I've definitely seen it before, but it's hard to coach against. I'll tell you that. It's different. It's the first time we went against them was at Hunter.
Yep.
Donald Hartley didn't play, and a lot of our guys, were in foul trouble early. So we were, it was a struggle. It was a big struggle. And then in the second semester, with us adding our new guys and Donald Hartley returning and things like that, we were able to basically come out on top. And one thing we did, and I think it kind of helped us, was a lot of people think with a team like that shoots a lot of threes, you don't want to zone them. We zoned them. At that point we were rolling with zone, and we found our identity. So we ran zone against them and ended up working out for us. And like I said, it's good when you go up against a team like that and you have 3 guards you can hand the ball to, and we can get the ball up the court. So it's 3 guys who can also score as well. So it ended up working out for us in that game. But they were a scary team. They were a scary team. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they lost to John Jay twice in the regular season, and they beat them in the playoffs.
Yep. In fact, they lost.
That's a team that they're scary. No matter, because any given night you don't know what to get.
That's why I was worried about them, because I do think that there's something about beating a team 3 times is really, really difficult. And those teams had squared off, very recently prior to that. You almost kind of got a sense, I don't know. And the way John Jay plays versus the way Hunter plays, I mean, you guys were a little bit more equipped about it. And I know Coach Highland had said that it was done. It was a certain college coach, but I almost trying to think the only other time. The only other time I was thinking about it and watching the press, and I was going back to this, and it hit me, and it almost reminded me of what Nolan Richardson used to do at Arkansas, where they just used to just press you up and down and up and down. I mean, I know you were a great player, and I know you have great players, but I mean, like 40 minutes of press, and literally they pressed John Jay. You'll probably chuckle at this. They pressed John Jay. So at a 40 minutes, they pressed him for like 39 minutes in like 25 seconds. How do you prepare for something like this? I mean, what do you like? Do you practice? Don't tell me the strategy, obviously, because they'll probably do the same thing again next year. But like, how do you prep with this? I mean,
so for us, it was a little different. Due to the postponement of games, we had to play some games on Sundays, and then we had like a schedule of 3 or 4 games in a week. So every other day we had a game, and there were a day where we had to give the kids a rest because they can't go 7 days in a row.
Right.
So the day before the Hunter game, we actually gave them a day off. I told them it's going to be a war, and you need rest. They needed rest. They just hit, I believe it was a point where we were playing 4 games in like 6 or 7 days, which is insane. So like, I believe we played a Friday, Saturday, then a Sunday, Monday, and a Wednesday. It was insane. So for us to have that, and for those guys to just really relax and take the day off and watch film and those kind of things. And when it comes down to it, you're really just going out there and playing basketball when you're going up against Hunter. That's how I view it. It's it's a fun game. It's a high scoring game. It's a fast paced game, but you got to be strong with the ball. That's the key. One of the things is be strong with the basketball. You got to close out on shooters, and we'll see where we go from there.
Oh, listen,
I
no
don't want to give you too much.
Please don't, because you know what? I know somebody's going to hear this at this point because people know I do these at this point. So don't. I always tell everybody. I tell every coach that comes on, don't tell me the strategy. I always say it with like an asterisk. Don't tell me the strategy because it's going to come right back to me because I know it because people listen to these things and they hear the clips on Instagram. But I will say one key, and I'm probably going to get in so much trouble for saying this, and you can certainly plead the fifth. Hunter's player, I think it was Luka Jokic. All I know is on the John Jay game, though, he missed 2 dunks. So I will say one thing. Wow. So I will say one thing. If you are playing them, let him dunk the ball because he missed twice on those. So now I'm going to get in so much trouble. Coach Pellin's going to say he had like what 20 rebounds or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player. He's a and I want to say big shout out to Coach Pellin too for he played his offense a certain way. He switched up and he got some success out of it. So
no, you know what? I couldn't agree.
Him for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more because I watched them against St. Joe's and they were killing St. Joe's until the last 8 minutes of the game, and all of a sudden we get 43 points. We're down 19. We lose by 1. Listen.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You got to give Coach Pellin a lot of credit because he really changed the identity of that team where they
got a playoff win. So.
Yeah, well, trust me, I was watching the game. I was supposed to get Coach Highland on after they were supposed to win, and they lost. So what does that tell you?
Definitely big shout out to him. He's finding something that's working for him. So kudos to him.
But I will say one thing, and credit to coaches. Well, credit to you guys. I did enjoy watching them play. So if anything, and I said this with Coach Highland, I said they were fun to watch. It was sometimes you watch these games and they're in the 50s, and you guys weren't in the 50s, and they weren't in the 50s, and speaking of wins here, I did want to talk about, obviously, because I know your brother very well. Obviously, we've had your brother on. Your brother's a good friend, and obviously, we love the program there over at the Bears. But you did get one up on your brother, obviously. I mean, I kind of feel like it's with an asterisk because it was a tough season for them. They had a lot of different things that they went through. But do talk to me about your brother and getting the win there, and obviously everything. Your other brother I know is playing there as well, and I've seen him. He's had some big moments there in the rotation. I wouldn't say he's had moments every game, but he did have a few moments there. I know it's kind of tough there getting in there, but I have a feeling going forward, especially with Chris Mikos leaving, and we'll see what happens with some of their other players. But do talk to me about playing against your brother, getting a win, and just all that, and seeing how that all unfolded.
Well, it's we're both ball players, and I've never got to play against him as a player.
We talked about that.
We definitely years apart, but he to be on the same sideline, just on opposite sides, it's just it's cool. It's to know like my older brother's on the other bench, coaching his group, I'm coaching my group, and definitely. It's a cool moment because we're just we're family at the end of the day. But I definitely want to beat him though. At the end of the day, I definitely plan on winning those games. And for my little brother, he's learning the game. He's learning the pace. He's learning the level of college basketball. But like I said, one thing about him, he always said he's having fun. He was hit with injuries throughout the season, but every time he's out there, he enjoys himself. So that's the first key. For playing ball, you got to enjoy it, and those guys, they were hit with a tough season. But Chris Mikos was
Mikos, Mike. Listen, even against Yeshiva, he played well. I mean, goodness,
he's tough.
Yeah, I mean,
he's tough. And I've watched this. My brother's been there for a while, so I've watched him play every year, and what I've seen out of him this year, I'm like, wow, this kid is, he's elevated his game every season. Because if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he was a transfer from Mount St. Mary. And, for him to go to St. Joe's and literally better himself every year, big congrats to him. I know they're going to miss him next season. He's, I know we're all going to miss players next season. I wish I had a lot of my guys coming back next season, but, but as far as like my brothers, it's always love. Like, I see those guys all the time, and, we're just, I don't even think we talk about, those kind of games because it's like,
Yeah, I can
it's like
imagine. I can
we speak
imagine.
about our team, we speak about our roster, we speak about, you know, some guys I know he's recruiting, some guys he knows I'm recruiting. It's just, little things like that. But as far as that game, that's just for people to see and be like, wow, are you guys brothers? And it's like, yeah, we're brothers.
And I feel like also that you guys' seasons were two different teams this year. So it wasn't like, for example, when we spoke the first time, it was like, okay, your Brooklyn College teams and his SJC Brooklyn teams, almost like that would have been fun because you guys were really good kind of at the
Nope.
same time. In
We
this
would have beat them.
case, I know, right? But the point is that you guys like were equals almost, right? And not to say that they weren't on equals with you, but they're rebuilding. It's a rebuilding process there. So at the end of the day, you can't judge the score of that. You can't judge the outcome of that because they're building something differently there. And listen, Mikos was fun to watch. I have to say, I know we talked about Mambe, but Mikos was like 2020. He had I think he had 49 points in one game or some crazy segment. Brad and I
against Hunter. Hunter.
I know. He had like 49 points, like
50 or whatever.
51 or 27 rebounds. I think Brad mentioned it. Brad mentioned me on Instagram because we follow because we cover it. And he goes, "Oh, did you see Chris Mikos?" I'm like, "Yeah, what happened?" I think he scored like 49 points. He said, "No, 51, like 27." It was like, I'm like, "Who did he play? Hunter, right?" He goes, "Yeah, Hunter," because it's Hunter, right?
He's tough. He's tough. He's fun to watch, though.
I'm going to miss watching him because I was watching him down the stretch and even against SJC Long Island, and he was a fun player, and I wish him all the best, as well as Dimitri Sarakis. Obviously, of course, we know the Sarakis family very well, and you actually are 2 for 2 this year against SJCs. You beat Brooklyn, and of course, you beat my Golden Eagles. I know you weren't there, but anything you might want to say to some of the guys? I actually told Coach McSloy and Coach Godiesso you'd be coming on. Anything you'd like to say to them?
No, they're doing a hell of a job over there. That St. Joe's game, the first game of the season, that was tough.
That was that was a tough game. No, that was like a game. It was like
that was tough. Those guys, they get after it. He's doing a hell of a job over there. They get. I forget. Oh man, remind me the big kid they have.
Spence.
Oh my God.
It was his birthday just before. I got to wish him a happy birthday, Spence. He'll kill me if I don't wish him
a happy birthday. He went after us. He got after.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. Yeah,
he was a tough cover, and he was that way all season for whoever he matched up with. So
and he wasn't like the brute force who could only just basically beat you from the rebound. Spence could actually shoot it a little bit from the mid-range shot.
He was a nightmare. He was a nightmare for us that night. But we ended up pulling out that game. But it was a dogfight.
I think you guys were up, if I recall, most of that game, though. I think you guys were up.
It was tough.
Yeah, I think you guys might have been up maybe 1 with like 4 minutes left. I think we got back to like 1 or 2, and you guys kind of pulled away.
Karan kind of took over that game. He at a point of that game he took over. And
I think he had almost like either just about a half your points that game. I think that was what it was, if I recall.
He took over that game and. It was fun to watch. Let's just say that.
No,
it was fun to watch from the sideline.
It was fun if you were on York side for sure.
Yeah, he really took over that game. I can't say. I know he had a big second half. I don't know. I can't tell you how many points he had in the second half, but I know it was.
I think it was like 20, like 21 or 22 points, if I recall.
The second half,
Gordiesso's going to remember. I guarantee you, Coach Gordiesso's going to watch the tape after this. No, trust me, he'll watch the tape.
It was his first game back for a while for Karan. So, in the beginning, he was filling it out. He was being passive. He was doing it. And, something clicked at halftime. And he, you see the look in his eyes. It was different. Yeah,
I was watching that. And when he had the ball every time, and I think I remember saying this to myself, I think Brad and I think either Brad was at the game or he was watching it with me. I forget what it was at this point. It's so long ago. And we kept saying, Karan has the ball. He's scoring. There's nothing you can. There's nothing you can do about it. Listen, there was nothing you could do. He just Karan took over that game.
I just seen the SJC coach when they played against my brother at
and that was the game where
was a buzzer beater. Yes, I think it was a buzzer beater. I was at that game.
And that was a wild one because the Bears were up, I think 6 with like 40 seconds left, and I think they were up 8 with less than 2 minutes left. I don't even know how we won. I don't know how we won that game. Kevin O'Halloran. Thank you, Kevin O'Halloran.
it was a lot of things that happened in that last minute or so.
Why that was like
it was
wild, and I
it
have
was
to
tough.
say, and I'm sure Coach Scordiesa will get into this, and I know that the guy, because I don't want to tip my hand, but I speak with a lot of the players, and the guys were very disappointed in how they played up until that last minute. It was like
Yeah,
I
it
I
was.
I don't want to say who it was, but one of the players on the team, he said to me off the air, he said, well, that was one of those games that we definitely deserve to lose, but we just thank God we say a sign of the cross and prayers and we won that game because
Yeah,
that was a
that
game
was
they did.
tough.
Yeah, they
If
didn't
you,
deserve that one. It
I'm sure
was
if you ask the St. Joe's, the Brooklyn side, they'll give you a whole different answer of what how they feel that ending went.
Oh, I'm sure one of these days we'll get your brother. I have a feeling about that. I'm sure he'll hear what Coach Gordieso has to say. But it was funny because I think we played Manhattanville. I think it was the week before, and that was a game that we, for all intents and purposes, should have won, and we wound up. We were up. I think we were up one with maybe 4 or 5 minutes left. We wound up losing, and
Oh
then
wow.
that was the game that sort of. I was it Coach Heenan that said it was the Coach Heenan or Gordieso that said that they sort of canceled each other out. So listen, it was a wild one. Obviously, listen. I mean,
It happens.
we're happy that we got the win. Obviously, the program very similar to York's in the fact that we had 15 wins, best regular season in just about a decade. Get to the Skyline
Nice.
tournament for the first time in 5 years,
Nice.
and we have about another 15 or 20 or so minutes with, of course, the legendary coach Jamel Gist, who did a phenomenal job with the York Cardinals program. 13-11 here this season, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for them. 10-4 in the CUNYAC, and broke my heart a number of different times. Won their first game in the CUNYAC tournament since 2014-15. They are on their way to bigger and better things. Please follow Coach Gist as always on Instagram at JGist15. Also, York Cardinals _M basketball. As always, also shout outs to Coach Adams. I would be remiss if I didn't say a shout out to Coach Adams just because I know Barry, I'll speak with Kevorkian, and he'll say, Nolan Adams, did you speak to Nolan Adams this season? I said, well, we spoke with Coach Gist, so that's kind of close enough. But obviously, your Cardinals are doing a great things here on and off the court. We're always excited here. Another 15 or 20 minutes so with Coach Gist. And Coach, I got to talk to you then. Obviously, CUNYAC tournament, making the tournament. First time we're in the tournament here since 2015. I rewatched the game yesterday against CCNY, and it was the first one we had in quite a while. I think maybe if all year we had some type of spectators. Added a lot to the flavor of the season. And I got to ask, because I know a lot of people from York, a lot of boosters, players might hear this, and talk to me about what it meant to be in the tournament for the first time since 2015, to get the program's first win in the CUNYAC tournament since 2015.
It meant a lot. It was a huge stepping stone for us because if I'm not mistaken, that was the first playoff home game we've hosted since 2014. So it's been 8 years since the program has had a playoff home game. It was something our guys were excited for. And they're making history. They're making progress. They're showing that your Cardinals is nothing to slouch at anymore. You know what I mean? And they, our guys' goal was really to just earn respect, and that was our motto the entire season. It's never given. You got to go out there and earn it. And those guys like to think they went out there and earned respect each and every night, whether it's with their, practicing hard every night and going out, showing the other team that, hey, we're not the York College of late, man. We're here to stay. And it was fun. It was fun to coach. It was really fun to coach. Just having a group of guys who really just had one goal. You know what I mean? And, everyone just staying on the same page and, having positive energy around each other and being led by, a senior guard in Karan Dublin and, a junior captain in Devon Chisholm, and also having guys like DJ Hartley, Mambe Caresi. Those guys really bought in. They knew this was it. Like I said earlier, your next game, you're gonna be paying ref fees. If once the season's over, you're gonna be paying ref fees in the men's league. Your season could be done. So, and that's just the thoughts we try to put in their heads is that this game don't last forever. I think I'm living proof of that. I had the clock runs out eventually.
You said that last time. You think you actually used that actual phrase? I'm pretty sure you used that quote.
It runs out. It runs out, and I tell those guys all the time. Everybody sees me and they like, "Oh, coach, you did this, you did that, you did that." Yeah, but it's over. But it's over.
Okay.
It's done. It's done. I can't do it anymore. So, that's just one thing we try to instill in those guys. Just knowing that it does not last forever. You're a player now, but there's gonna be a point when it's over. So for those guys to really just embark on that and put all of their hearts in it and basically say, let's make this season one to remember. And, it led with a first round playoff home game. So that was huge for us.
Did it give also, and I haven't brought it up, but I almost have to in some way. I know that some schools played with fans, they didn't play with fans, and there was a whole different, I mean, every team in the CUNY and frankly across at this level had different policies and different protocols. And that's obviously understandable to what the schools and administrators felt in terms of safety. But did you guys feel like maybe that there was a little bit more of a boost because coach was on the sidelines, first home playoff game, but also there was some spectators? Did you feel like you guys got a little bit of an added boost going into that game?
For the spectators?
Like some, yeah, like some, just that whole thing. Because obviously during the season, you guys didn't really play with spectators, if at all, if I recall correctly. I mean,
so we didn't play with. Can you give me 1 second?
Absolutely, take your time. Take your time.
Give me 1 second.
No, take your time. No rush. As we are here on Sportswire Radio.
Sorry to bother you. I have some package.
So that whole thing there, with spectators and no spectators, home playoff game. How was all of that for you guys in terms of that game?
So I have mixed feelings about that rule. I just feel like if one school is going to have spectators, we all should have it. Or if one is not, then we all should have it. But if you ask me, my team played better without spectators.
Well, yeah, you guys did. You guys did win a lot of games.
The energy was crazy. The energy was loud. It was live, and it was a shock when they finally got to see fans. And it was a different, you know what I'm saying? Because they were so used to playing without fans.
Sure.
And for them to finally see fans, it was like, whoa, this is different. So, I just wish, we stuck. Now, if we were able to have fans all season, I'm all for it just because now we're used to it, as the season progresses. But, it happens. It's basketball. You're going to deal with things.
Yeah,
you're going to deal with empty gyms. Even if fans were expected, you're going to deal with some empty gyms. You're going to deal with some packed gyms. So it's a part of the game. You just got to be prepared for it.
Listen, I think at the end of the day, and speaking with different coaches and players, and I don't want to spend too long because I want to get some closing thoughts and also maybe some goals here for 2022. And the fact that, listen, at least you guys had a season, right? At the end of the day, it's better than nothing. The fact that, listen, I know it wasn't easy. I know it wasn't is what we hoped for. I know there was some pauses and starts and different things like that. But I think at the end of the day, to the fact that we at least had basketball and had a season, I almost think that it's still a win. It's still better than nothing. Listen, half a loaf is better than no loaf, or 2/3 of whatever you want to call it at this point. So I kind of think that those are things to look upon. And I always ask this question, especially now that we're going into 2022 and the off season. And I'm curious, and what are your goals for 2022 now that we go into next season?
Well, like I told our guys, soon as that buzzer sounded at Baruch, our off season started. So, our goal is just to improve our guys' play and hopefully come back next season and be stronger than we were this season. But it starts now. I hope, our guys have to be in the gym every day. What are they doing to get better? And one of the best things to do right now to get better is making sure your studies are correct, making sure your grades are correct so that you are eligible to play next season. And that's probably the key point because, this is a common saying, but it's so true. You're a student athlete and student definitely comes first because the goal at the end of the day is to graduate. So with that being said, just making sure those guys are, staying crisp on their game, making sure their grades and their studies are correct, and basically coming back next season stronger and now willing to buy in from the jump and ready to win a championship. But, now that we got some experience, the sky's the limit.
I have a very good feeling the sky is definitely the limit for the York Cardinals men's basketball team. And I'm not going to ask you about the semifinals. I want to just stay on point. We won the CUNYAC first playoff because it's still wide open. It's still, the wound is there, but we'll definitely get into it, I'm sure, next season when we win the CUNYAC, and we certainly build upon this season. I think there's a lot to be proud of here with the program. Obviously, you were a part of it. And I almost have to ask you this question, and I'm curious on your thoughts on it. And don't tip your hand. Don't tell me your strategy. But after getting the opportunity to coach, and you'd obviously be somebody that one day I'm sure is going to be a commodity, to be someone that would be a great coach somewhere. You've obviously got the pedigree. You were a championship player. You're now at a program at York that, listen, Coach Adams, you, Tommy Guerin have all done a great job, and Coach Wilkerson as well. I want to give him a shout out as well. Have all done a good job in building this program back to from what it was to where we are now, where I think we're right there. We're right there in terms of competing and maybe winning a CUNYAC regular season and postseason. After getting a taste of this, is this something that you would like to do in terms of being a coach?
Definitely, without question. It's different. Like I said earlier, it's something new. But one thing I love about coaching is that it keeps me close to the game. I don't lace up to play anymore. So I live through these players.
Sure.
And to just be on the sideline and stay around the game and recruit players that remind me so much of myself, and I see myself in a lot of these guys, and it's just a joy. I work full time with New York City Parks and Recreation, but this is the highlight of my day every day. I enjoy coming to practice. I enjoy coaching games. Like this is the highlight of my day. I enjoy being around a bunch of 20-year-olds and just, picking their brains and them picking my brain and learning how I won a championship and what can they do they can earn their own championship. So like I said, this is a joy, and coaching is one of the best jobs in the world.
Absolutely. No question. Listen, I got a good feeling about, and I could see why the guys would pick your brains, and very quickly, because I realize, what time is short here and such. But in terms of, you brought up Brooklyn College in a sense. Did some of the guys maybe live vicariously through you this season? Because now you had a lot of success. Now, obviously, going to the semifinals and Quran, and I will ask you one or two more questions on Quran before we get out of here. But did some of the guys maybe follow the team this year and messages, hey, you know what? York's really good this year. You guys, the season you had, beaten Baruch, beaten Lehman. Baruch, we lose by 4 points in the 2 games. Beaten John Jay twice. The matchups with Hunter. I mean, you guys had some really, really big wins. Did some of those teammates maybe live vicariously through you a little bit this year?
So of course, like I hear from them even when we're losing. So even in the season we lose, those are my brothers, and that's one thing that's about the game of basketball, is that it's a brotherhood, it's a family. Those guys, they're gonna text me when we're losing, they're gonna text me when we're winning. Like those are just that's my family, and that's something that I instill in these guys now, that years from now you're gonna remember, these are your family. Like these are your guys you're gonna call, and these are the guys that's gonna be in your wedding, your this, your that, or your kids' godparents, whatever. Like that's the relationship. That's the thing basketball brings together in a lot of these kids. So basketball is the ultimate fraternity as far as brotherhood, just because it keeps everyone together. So those guys, they give it to me all the time. So I hear from my teammates all the time.
I figured that. Something told me that I could see you hearing from Pops, and certainly Nick Grasso we had on, and all those guys. McAuliffe, I'm sure, is lurking in the shadows. So I'm sure.
I spoke to him recently.
I figured that. Something tells me that. And obviously, always shout out to Coach McAuliffe. And I want to ask you this last question on Quran before I get closing thoughts. And obviously, always happy to have you. And I don't know why it took this long to have you back on. I have no idea why it took this long, but I'm happy that you reached out. But
you took off. You took off, man. You've been excelling in this podcast, man. No, I'm honored you had me. So I know you've been. I've been watching from afar. I see you doing your thing with a lot of other guys. So that's a big congrats to you. You deserve it for sure.
No, and obviously, listen. Likewise for you, obviously with the program. And I always had a feeling, I'm like, we're gonna speak with Coach again. And I think Brad and I spoke about this a few times. In fact, but with Quran going with the possibility of having a career overseas, in terms of for you guys in the program, and I almost think in a sense it has to be some kind of lift in terms of selling the program. Is that at all maybe an extra boost to you guys, knowing that Quran could be selling the program by playing professionally?
Well, one thing I would say about that is that him playing professionally, I don't want to use that to benefit our program.
Okay.
I want him to know we're proud of him. That's for him. He got that because he deserved it. I'm sure guys will, some recruits will ask, hey, has anybody ever gone overseas? But and if Quran is blessed with that opportunity to do that, I will gladly share that with incoming recruits. But the sole purpose of getting Quran overseas has nothing to do with getting credit for the program or getting recruits in. No, it's for Karan to better his life and do something he wants to do. And he's somebody who eats, sleeps, and breathes basketball all day. So if we can get him over there, that's big kudos to him. But the goal is just to make him happy and do what he wants to do in life.
Absolutely. I have a very, very good feeling about that. I have a feeling I'm going to be somewhere on YouTube, whether it's like 1:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, somewhere, and watching him because he's a fun player to watch. He broke my heart a couple times. So I cannot stress that enough. And congratulations to him. Obviously, CUNYAC first team. He was Met Writers. He was right up there, honorable mention. I mean, he was right up there in terms of a number of different awards. I mean, you had a number of different guys this year that would have been that. And Karan was at the top of the list. So I definitely want to congratulate him. And I want to ask you this last question before I get closing thoughts from you. And I always like to ask this to different people we have on, especially with a program like yours. What do you want to say to maybe boosters to the team, players, your coaches, anybody else that followed the team this year and supported you guys? What would you like to say to them in terms of now that the season is closed and going on to next season?
I would just say I hope we made you guys proud. We hope you guys continue to support, and next season, hopefully it'll be 10 times better. We appreciate all the support we can get, and we want to make, alumni and staff and fans, we want to make you guys all proud, and hopefully we're taking a step in that right direction.
I think you guys have definitely done that. I know it's early, but I'm looking at the CUNY, and I'm looking at these different teams that would have players come back and lose players, and again, I'm definitely thinking that York is going to be there once again at the top of the standings. And again, congratulations to you guys, a tremendous season. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it in the coming weeks and months about the program. Also, want to shout out Coach Adams, Coach Guerin, Coach Wilkerson, because I saw Coach Wilkerson on the sidelines for a lot of these games. He was yelling up and down. I mean, listen, I got to say, how did he keep a voice in some of those games? Because I'm listening to some of these streams, and I hear Coach Wilkerson more than I heard you sometimes. I almost have to throw it out there before closing thoughts. I mean, how did Coach Wilkerson keep his voice after some of those games?
That's man. He's a legend. That's Coach Wilkerson, but he's also known as Coach Black to a lot of our players, and he's fun. He's fun to be around.
I like to watch him on the sideline. Listen,
but he's very, very knowledgeable of the game. Very stern to our players. They all listen to him. They all buy into what he's teaching because he definitely knows the game. He's been around the game a lot longer than I've been around the game. So, learning from him is even a blessing in myself. So, he's an active one. He's a loud one. And I trust me. I love every part of it.
No, I think there was some games, especially the games that was no spectators, and I heard his voice. That was all I needed to know. I think there was a couple different calls, and I'm not going to ask you on those calls because I could be there all day talking about the team, but it's always a tremendous honor to have you, and I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts, anything you want to plug that we haven't plugged, anything else that you want to say, and I can't thank you enough, but not only for what you do for York, but also for the game of basketball and these kids and these lives and making a positive difference. And I think at this level here for D3, I think that's the most important thing is how these players turn out off the court. And you're a big part of their lives. Obviously, Coach Adams, Coach Wilkerson, Coach Guerin, everybody else. So I turn it over to you, my friend. I want to give you the floor. Anything else you want to share? Anything you want to plug, say? Floor is yours. I can't thank you enough.
I would just say, man, it's been an honor as usual. It's been a pleasure just being on your show, and I appreciate you having me. I watch you. I support from afar.
I see you view my Instagram stories. I even say some of the ones you view with my wrestlers that come on from England. I'm like, Coach Gist is watching.
I definitely support. I believe in support. I believe in definitely supporting people.
I always try to like your post on Facebook, by the way. I have to say, I do make sure definitely. I'm always one of your likes on Facebook. You can always count. Your brother, I don't think I like as much on Facebook, his post, but your posts always show up on my timeline, and I always make sure to like your posts. I can guarantee you that I'm one of those likes.
Well, I appreciate it. No, I appreciate all the support. But as far as for the program, I just hope people tune in and support and. Not even if it's just York, just supporting the conference, and because at the end of the day, it's about these student athletes, and we are surrounded with some of the best student athletes just around because they go through so much just to play the game. As far as we spoke about earlier, as far as working and dealing with school and commutes, so I guess, my closing thought would just be to everyone, come support CUNY basketball. It was a fun season. One of our CUNY teams is still in it. Best of luck to them in the national tournament, but they definitely just come out and support, and you won't be sorry you did it.
No, because of CUNY basketball, and I always look forward to it. In fact, I was speaking with some of the guys before I get out of here, and I actually said, I'm kind of sad now that there's no basketball between the CUNY and the Skyline. I'm actually like, I'm kind of
I don't even
sad
know what
about
to
it.
do. I
You
don't know what to
it's-
do anymore.
That's exactly my words. I have to say, between I think it was the end of October this year, early November, to now, it was like I always knew Tuesday nights, I got 2 games to watch. I got a game Thursday night, sometimes a Friday night game, and a Saturday game, Saturday afternoons. Now it's like
Yep.
I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what hobby I should take.
Now I'm home in time to be on the sports report. So
Well,
that's one of the
we
good
can
things.
bring
That's
on-
one of the good things.
I'll bring you on the sports report whenever you want, but I'm still going to miss basketball. And I will say before I get out of here, I am looking forward to meeting you during the games next season. I'm looking forward to now
Of
with
course.
things getting to normal. I know I watched you guys in 2020, but I didn't formally get a chance to meet you. So I'm really, really looking forward to watching you guys, and maybe even watch a York and SJC game, because from what I did hear, that you guys are playing SJC Long Island next year. So I have heard that you guys are supposed to be playing them. So
for the past couple of years, we've kept the plan going. So building a partnership like that is always a cool thing. So
and I know Coach McSloy speaks very highly of you and Coach Adams, and I know Coach Gordieso from his time at CCNY knows you very well. So I have a good feeling that I'm going to see that. So, Coach, can't thank you enough. Congratulations on the season. I'm looking forward to speak with you soon, and we'll definitely talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks a lot, man. It's been a pleasure.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show with the associate head coach for our York Cardinals men's basketball team, that's Jamel. As I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. I want to thank everybody for watching this. And of course, if you can follow the York Cardinals men's basketball team, I would assure you do so on Instagram at York Cardinals _and basketball. Also, Coach Gist on Instagram is JGist15. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager, Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you, everybody, for watching this. Good night.